Welcome, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at all their locations. If you're going to have a beer, make it a Fatty Beer. Make sure you let them know Two Goalies when Mike sent you. And as always, Buffalo Go Apparel. Shop local, go to Buffalo Go, tell them Two Goalies when Mike sent you. Grab your bills, your Sabres, your shirts, your hats, your hoodies. They have everything over there. So I am joined by Walt, from also known as Sabermetrics on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Walt, let's get right into it. Sabres absolutely steamroll the Rangers 8-2. One of those games where we've seen it in the past. They go up real early in the first period, a second period that, I wouldn't say they exactly played poorly, but they definitely let the Rangers breathe life into their game a little bit. And then they close it out in a third that I haven't seen from them all season, honestly, when playing with a lead. So it's exciting. Just your initial thoughts. And I definitely also, too, I want to get into you on your experience at that finals for the Four Nation, too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that Sabres game I thought was awesome. I kind of had like deja vu a little bit from that Rangers game earlier on in the season, where it seemed like everything for the Sabres was just going in that first period. And that second period was a little scary. I thought that shorthanded goal they gave up to Kreider, the Rangers' first goal, that one wasn't too pretty. He was kind of left wide open in front of the net to get that one. And then obviously they got the second after that. And like with this Sabres team, you're kind of conditioned to like get nervous when the score goes 5-2. And then, like you said, great third period to close it out. And I mean, just a huge 8-2 win for the Sabres. I think games like these show what the Sabres team is capable of when they play to their strengths and when they get some bounces. So I think even though playoffs may be a long shot at this point, it's always good to see games like these in these final 28 games of the season.
Yeah, man, I can't agree with you more. I'm not one of those guys who wants to see the Sabres, play for draft position, even if it's far out of the playoff spot as they are right now. I think we're well beyond that, right? I mean, nice to be in a position to win James Hagen's, but I just don't think we've done that enough. We've been in that position enough. We've seen where it's gotten us, which is absolutely nowhere. At one point we had we had a first round pick, two first overall picks, 2 second overall picks amongst the team just littered with former first round picks. And it really hasn't gotten us anywhere. So I'd much rather see them make a push here and play for the playoffs, even though it's really just the most unrealistic thing in the world. I think even with this tonight's win, they're probably like a 3% chance at making at this point, like that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. But I'm really encouraged by what I saw tonight. Tage Thompson looks like a guy who's playing with a giant chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I know. Tage looked pretty incredible. I mean, I know he was in Boston for that game on Thursday, so I feel like just seeing that game played in front of him without him in the lineup had to give him some motivation. And he also played like two guys that kind of got those final roster spots over him tonight in Chris Kreider and Vinny Trocheck. So to add a little more fuel to the fire. And yeah, Tage showed up. I think, when he's on, he's truly a special player. And I think he's on most of the time that he's not injured. So he looks pretty healthy right now, and he looks pretty dominant, and he has looked dominant the past month or so.
Yeah. Going into the Four Nations break, he looked fantastic. And I remember his first goal. I don't know why Shesterkin played that puck. No clue why. Like, it was a easy dump in. It should have been an easy cover. And as a goalie, man, you want to, if you can play the puck to your defenseman and get a zone exit, you do it every time. But I know who that was. He had no clue he was playing on that puck. So it kind of caught him off guard. You put your D-man in a really difficult spot there because he had Tage bearing down on them. And the second I saw that it was Tage going to that corner, and I saw that he came out with clean, and it went to that corner shot of him protecting the puck and him really digging in and beating his men. And then he beat both Lindgren and Fox, got to the net. And the second he got into the net and he still had the puck on his stick, I was like, oh my God, I think he's gonna finish. I think he's gonna finish. And he did. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, could you imagine having that on Team USA? Like, could you imagine having that type of like, that's effort, man. That's, they call it beast mode. That is effort. I remember there was a famous RJ call back in 96, 97, where we spelt out effort. That's EFFORT or whatever. That's exactly what that was, man. That's just wanting it more than the Rangers, pushing through and getting himself to the net and not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that first goal where he just kind of barreled through like everyone to score that one. It's just crazy. That's like pure Tage.
Yeah, it really was. Jordan Greenway, we got Sabres man 31 here. The Jordan Greenway effect. I mean, I don't know if, Jordan Greenway is the difference between winning a game by 1 and winning a game by 7 or 6. But definitely, man, like Greenway's presence was surely felt there by both teams tonight. And the first goal on the back check, making that whole sequence happen. Obviously sending the puck on net for Darlene's tipping. He was just all over the ice every night. You saw Rempe trying to get in his ear a little bit and, get under Rempe's skin, which, I mean, I'd love to see them two go, honestly, personally. But again, not biting on it to allow the Rangers kind of gain any momentum from winning a fight there. Just your thoughts on Jordan Greenway's game tonight and just how much this team has missed him.
Yeah, I thought Greenway was awesome, and they threw him on a line to start with Cousins and Quinn, and I think those are two guys who kind of need some saving, and I thought Greenway was probably the best of the three on that line. I just think he adds kind of a different element to the Sabres. He just adds like that physical play, winning puck battles, kind of just barreling down the ice. I mean, really like that goal he got tonight too. It's kind of similar to the Tage goal where he just like barrels through everyone in the offensive zone, gets the puck back and just fires it from close to the point and scores. Like there's not many guys that can do that with their size and win puck battles like that. So I thought that was pretty cool to see. I'd really like to see him on a line with Zach Benson again. I know they've been kind of keeping Benson on that fourth line, but I just think back to the start of last season where they had that Middlestat Benson Greenway line, and I thought that was the Sabres' best line, like every night they played together. So I think it'd be cool to have Benson and Greenway on a line, both two guys that play hard, try to win puck battles. I think it could be a fun line. I mean, I know they're trying to see probably what they have with Quinn and Cousins before the season ends, with these games not really meaning that much in terms of playoffs. It makes sense that they try to see what they have with those guys. So I could see why they tried tossing Greenway there. But I think if you're looking for a perfect lineup, I think Greenway, Benson, and really toss any center on there would be a fun line.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, Benson's a guy you can really put anywhere in your lineup and he'll find a way to contribute. That's what I love about his game. It's just he has that little bit of Marchand in him where he's just going to be a little rat. Even that scrum there in the third.
Got
the ruffian penalty. Like he was clearly like in over his head, but he just didn't care, man. He looked like a lunatic. He did not care at all. He's like, let me get in there. And helmet off, too, which for a guy his size, it's kind of dangerous for him to not have his helmet on. I love this guy. He comes in the chat every once in a while. Go ahead and take all the credit.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. Did Zucker ever come back to the game after blocking that shot?
I think he did come back in the third period. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he came back in the third, so I'm guessing he's good to go. But, I mean, we've seen that with the Sabres where guys come back into the game, and then it turns out that they're like week to week once the game ends.
Yeah, and just – you look what happened with Matthew Tkachuk, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It had to piss you off, man, knowing that Tage was in the building.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they showed him the third period. They showed the press box because McAvoy was up there, so they wanted to show him in front of the Boston fans, and Tage
for sure
was sitting right next to him too. And I'm like, he would have been perfect for this game because that U.S.-Canada game really just came down to just bounces, and I think Tage could have been a guy that could help you get better bounces that game. Mm-hmm. And the fourth line too. With the three guys they chose over Tage, just not good. I felt like they gave up most of the high danger chances against that U.S. team gave up in regulation. That game was with that
Yep.
fourth line. So I think if you try to beat Canada, you got to go skill versus skill, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not going to beat Canada scoring 2 goals. Put it that way. You're just not going to. For me, it was like, and girls disagree with me, and I'm still going to say it now. Unless it was reported he tweaked something in the time he did play in that first period, which I don't know. I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming it was just him trying to go and he couldn't. How is you as a player who should know his body well enough not realize, at least after that pregame skate, I can't go tonight. You know what I mean? I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a selfish move on his part, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been impossible to tell that guy not to play. So it's kind of a tough situation. But yeah, with him being hurt, that kind of threw out that fourth line into the spotlight. And then you kind of have to mix and match lines all game because you're short on forwards. And it just kind of threw the game into the blender for the U.S.
And then you sit Connor, too, as well for – is it Kreider? They said him for Kreider?
Yeah, for Kreider.
Great move. I know. Was that the only game you got to? Obviously, the rest was played up north. So,
I went to the U.S. Sweden game.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That Monday, and definitely that game had more of like a relaxed vibe, just because U.S. was already in the championship and they didn't do much outside of scoring in like the first few minutes. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty well-run event by the NHL. It was definitely probably the most fun hockey game I've ever been to. That championship game. So it's definitely cool to be able to attend it.
In reality, a meaningless tournament and a meaningless game is for a trophy. You know, I guess you can't call it meaningless because the World Cup of Hockey then, even though a much longer tournament in a sense is no different than the Four Nations had it been with more teams, but I can't tell you the last time I had that much fun watching hockey. It's been a while. Just give me your overall experience, just how well the city of Boston did with the fan experience and everything else surrounding it.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much had like advertisements everywhere throughout the city, kind of advertising ticket sales like a few weeks before, and even the resale prices were almost below what I bought tickets for pre-sale, like prior to that first game in Montreal. And I think that first game in Montreal between Canada and Sweden, I think it really got the fans hooked, and I think they realized that the players are taking this thing seriously. And I think for someone like me who kind of got like really into like prospects in the NHL draft back in like 2014, 2015, like really into like those Eichel, Reinhart, McDavid drafts. I think this was cool to see in that regard, because looking back on it in those years, we were all thinking about like how good Team USA will be once Eichel, Matthews, even Matthew Tkachuk and all those guys reach their prime, and how fun those international games will be against Canada. And the fact that we really haven't seen like a full-on like Eichel versus McDavid US-Canada game since probably the 2015 World Juniors is pretty insane. So I think that kind of added to, really just the specialness of this tournament was, just having all those guys that kind of grew up playing against each other internationally at the junior level, like finally be able to take on each other at the pro level.
I'm going to say too, like, I think the last time, like international play, they played on the same team, didn't they?
Yeah.
Team North America.
Yeah, Team North America.
One of the most fun teams to watch. I'm kind of bummed out that they're not going to bring them back for 2028. I think they already said they're not going to do that, which kind of bums me out a little bit because they were so fun to watch. But
I think with that though, I feel like the NHL realizes like how much harder guys play. Well, not that North America team didn't play hard, but like how much more intense the games seem when guys play for their own country. So that's why I'm wondering why, if they probably saw that, and that's probably why they're doing away with Team Europe and Team North America, is because the games this past week just like absolutely blew away the World Cup of Hockey numbers in 2016. Like, I know that was a September tournament, so maybe it's a
longer tournament at that too, with more teams.
Yeah, longer tournament with more teams. Yeah.
So I'm excited, man. I can't wait for the Olympics. I can't wait for the World Cup of Hockey. I've been begging for the World Cup of Hockey since we were all introduced to Ralph Kruger for the first time.
Oh yeah, Team Europe.
Team Europe, yeah. But no, getting back to tonight's game, Tage again, we mentioned him just kind of really let it, trying to stick it up Bill Guerin and Chris Drury's pipe, especially I'm sure Chris Drury might have been in attendance tonight to witness that. And I was actually texting a Rangers buddy of mine during the game. I'm like, I mean, if they don't make the playoffs, like Laviolette and Drury, they're out, right? Like, how do you can't justify having this type of a team with this much skill and then missing the playoffs after winning the President's Trophy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a huge disappointment for them, and like the Eastern Conference is wide open this year. A team like the Rangers should easily be able to clinch a spot. So the fact they're struggling right now is concerning.
Yeah. I would say tonight too is honestly in terms of, I mean, they didn't win every period, obviously, but I thought that was the most we've gotten in terms of a full team effort where everybody was contributing. You can't really pick any player apart on that ice and say they had a bad game tonight.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been rare that the Sabres team's been able to kind of start off with a huge lead and then run away with it. Yeah, like only a handful of times that's happened this year. I mean, the other time I think was against the Rangers as well. So yeah, great to see from the Sabres tonight, just being able to, kind of just finish the job that they started in that first period. Like it shouldn't be difficult to win games when you're up like 4-0, 5-0, but it has been for the Sabres team. So I mean, props to them for closing it out tonight.
I saw an insane stat too about Shesterkin against the last two or three starts against. I think it's 2 starts. Or no, his last 5.5 periods against Buffalo, he's given up 12 goals. I don't think
that's pretty insane.
I don't think he finished. I'm not sure if he finished. He had to have finished. Actually, did he finish the last game? I don't know if he did.
I think that there was a win mixed in there. I think there was one game where he only gave up 2, and I think the Rangers beat the Sabres.
Okay.
And then the game before that, he gave up 5 in like a period and a half.
He's not had good luck against Buffalo, that's for sure. Dahlin, again, just showing us why I think this team would have been in a much better position had he not missed that entire 13-game sequence where they went without a win, the 13-game losing streak. And then again, we mentioned Greenway earlier. He was part of that too. He missed a handful of games through that streak too. Your thoughts on Dahlin coming out of, especially I got to imagine he was frustrated with his playing time. Overall coordinations, because I thought he got definitely hosed in terms of maybe the way they utilized him and the way they used him essentially throughout that tournament.
Yeah, I think Dahlin. I mean, I think at this point, I think he's easily top 5 defenseman in the NHL. I think you can even make an argument that he's like a top 15 player overall in the NHL, just in terms of how much he impacts the Sabres team. Like they're just simply a much better team whenever he's on the ice. And I mean, he's kind of reached that stage of his career where you can pair him with any other defenseman and that pair will be dominant. And that's something that we didn't think we'd see with Dahlin, or at least there's some concern we want to see with Dahlin like 2 or 3 years ago. But I mean, he's really turned it around both this season and last season, and I think he's just been elite. And yeah, I think he had to be disappointed with those games with Sweden too. I think obviously they have kind of like the old legends with Hedman and Carlson, so maybe they try giving those guys a bit of a farewell tour. But I think when next Olympics rolls around, I think Dahlin has to be the number 1 on that Sweden team. They'll be in trouble if they use anyone else.
Hedman looked his age. Carlson, I get it. He's an offensive dynamo player. Even at his age, he's like, that's why he's on the power play. I get it. But the way they deployed Rasmus Dahlin in that tournament was really upsetting, especially a guy like me, guys like me and you, or, that's the key player we're honing in on.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, obviously, we mentioned it's a really tall ask. I think this team can get themselves back into a playoff spot. We're in a position to compete for a playoff spot. And then there were 12 points out heading in. I'm not sure what the standings look now or what results will look like today or tonight, how things will shake out. But, if they can make things interesting going into April, do you see this team kind of like lighting up a little bit again? If they're like, say, 6 points out this time next month?
I mean, I can maybe see it. I think that would be a
It's
tall
tough, man.
task to get to that point. But I mean, I think that what are they 5-1 in their last six? Like they can just keep playing like that the rest of the season, then we'll be right there. But yeah, it's gonna take an absolutely historic run, I think, to get to that point. Like I can't remember the last time the Sabres had like a 28 game stretch where they went like 27-1 or
Yep.
like whatever they have to do to be in the mix.
Yeah. They'd have to go literally on a easily like 120-point pace from here on out to
Yeah.
really to really give themselves a chance, and even that's not going to guarantee you a spot. What are you looking for? At least just whether it's like leaving playoffs completely out of it. Again, it's like a 3% chance at this point. What are the things you're looking for most out of this team? I know it's been a minute since we talked to you, had you on the show. So, what are your expectations? What are you looking for? Is it just development? Is it certain players you're looking to develop more? It's the trade deadline's right around the corner. What do you want to see from Kevin Adams? Do you trust in Kevin Adams to make the right moves? I mean, it looks like he's going to be the guy, right? So, 13-game losing streak doesn't get you canned. I don't know what is going to get you fired.
Yeah.
What are your wants from here until again the end of the season?
Well, yeah, I think you're definitely just kind of seeing where a lot of things are at before you head into this off season. I think probably the two most important might be Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn. And
Yeah.
Dylan Cousins obviously involved in trade discussions pretty much throughout this season. Still hasn't really been that great, and it's not really a slump when it lasts 82 games, and I'd even argue 2 seasons as well. So yeah, he'd be a guy I'd keep an eye on how he closes out this year. Jack Quinn too. I think just in terms of what that next contract will look like. I mean, he got really lucky that his bad season kind of took place right when the NHL salary cap got announced to be raising the next 3 seasons and by a pretty significant amount too. So that should help him out. But I mean, he's going to get a lot less than we expected. So yeah, I mean, just focusing on the struggling guys, and then even you have a guy like Greenway. I think these next few games are kind of going to decide what the Sabres do with him. I mean, he has interest in re-signing here. Most guys that have interest in re-signing in Buffalo also expect a lot of money too. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And yeah, I mean, that's really where I'm at right now. I think these last 27 games coming up, I think they really have to kind of give you a showing of what we have heading into the off season. So yeah, I'm looking at kind of the guys that have been struggling and seeing like what's the next step with them. And if I'm Kevin Adams and someone like Dylan Cousins, for example, continues to struggle and there's still a good trade market for him, then I'm certainly exploring that this off season.
I agree. I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times more. If Jason Zucker is not signed by the deadline, you are trading him. You can't make that mistake you made with Linus Ullmark. If you want to have that conversation, if you want to be a part of this and getting this team back on track, if you're not going to sign now, then we have to deal you, but we'll have a deal on the table for you. Or maybe you have that conversation with regardless. Maybe you say, hey, how do you feel about us dealing you to contender? And if you want to come back in the offseason, because that's what a real GM should do and should ask of him. I mean, I'm looking to flip as many assets into players as I possibly can this offseason because, I mean, I'm done waiting on prospects to develop. I think Isaac Rosen, I think his value hasn't been this high since we drafted him. I think they should try and include him on some type of package if they can. I mean, I'm not sure where everybody's thoughts on Noah Ostlund. I mean, I'm very indifferent on him. I was much higher on him when we drafted him. I'm more about packaging the picks and the players, the picks and the prospects to get better now. So again, if you're not going to get Zucker signed before the deadline, you have to trade him. Bowen Byram, your thoughts on him? Because I've loved everything about his game all season. You saw him lay out there in the crease when Luukkonen couldn't find that puck. It was just, they were winning by 4 in the third period, and the guy is literally face first in the ice, snow angeling, trying to protect the puck in a game that might mean nothing to their season, but he's doing everything he can to keep the puck out of the net. That's just, again, an example, one of the many examples of why I've loved his game this season. Much over, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a big Owen Power critic, but that's one of the things that you don't see one of the things that he does that you don't see Owen Power do.
Yeah, I'd say Byram. I think I'm pretty set on like bringing him back as signing him as an RFA this offseason.
Agreed.
At the same time, I'd also like if there's a trade that could land a bigger fish and they want Byram as a part of a package, I would entertain it. But at the same time, just in terms of re-signing him, like the Caps can be going up a ton over the next 3 seasons. Sabres really aren't spending money on anyone, and they don't really have a lot of like future expensive contracts in the pipeline right now. They really got most of the expensive ones out of the way, so might as well bring him back.
I don't even know if you can take that chance on like JJ Peterka, right? Doing it with him, what you did with guys like Tage and Cousins, signing him 8 years for big money, hoping that they sign for kind of like the Cousins deal. You're hoping that deal, is very team beneficial at the end, and turned out that it hasn't been. I think Peterka's a bridge deal. Quinn's a bridge deal. When Zach Benson comes up, he's probably a bridge deal. Like the Devin Levi's contract's up. I imagine he'll be like a 3-year deal. Like it's not gonna be for money that's gonna really, hurt you in terms of the cap. Again, a cap that you mentioned before is going up significantly.
Yeah, no, I think really just that Dylan Cousins and even that Matthias Samuelsson deal will kind of keep the Sabres front office hesitant in handing out like those long-term deals. And I feel like, with the analytics department they have and everything, I feel like they kind of have to realize that it's only really worth giving out these long-term contracts if you think you could win on value. Like if you're paying someone like what their peak value will be like throughout that 7-year contract, then just give them a bridge, because unless like we have this situation now where the cap's going up a lot, like you won't be paying that player like significantly more, and you also lose like a lot of the risk that comes with signing a guy for 7 years, because then if they're not playing well, then you're just stuck with that contract.
I couldn't agree with you more. They can find a way to get out of that Samuelsson contract. I don't know how you don't. And it's not like I hate Matthias Samuelsson. Like I think that his play is very indicative of the injury history with him. Like we saw that year with him where he played a full year. I think he played a full season with Dahlin, where they both really kind of captured, solidified themselves as a first pairing in the league. And we all came into the next season like, holy shit, man, it's nice to have that first pairing locked down. We can focus on finding the next guy for Owen Power, and then just injury after injury after injury. I think, it's not for me, as much as I hated him for being the guy not to respond in the Tage Thompson thing. When it comes to Samuelsson, it's just like, it's just been a tough break for him throughout his career. And I think his body just isn't what it was that season where he did shine with Dahlin.
Yeah, really just the injuries have been killer. And that's kind of the risk too when the Sabres signed him, is that it's still so early on in a career. So if you're a young player and then those injuries start popping up, and then you're signed to a 7-year deal, and that's just not great. And he really plays the type of game where, you can get a lot of injuries. Like if you block a lot of shots and whatnot, all it takes is a puck to the glove or like an unpadded part of your leg or something, and then you're out week to week. And I feel like we've seen that so much with him.
Yeah. I love this from Are You Kidding Me? Still dying that the Sabres hit the over on the game with a goal from Yoki. Are you? Welcome to the program. Are you kidding me? It's nice to see new faces in the chat. Any final thoughts here before we get out, before we shut things down?
Oh, well, overall, I just saw it was a fun game for the Sabres, and I guess that's really all we could ask for at this point, when they're just kind of barely hanging on to playoff hopes at like a 3% chance. So I'll take a fun hockey game, because I know I'm going to miss this team this offseason. I'm going to miss just be able to turn on a Sabres game on a Saturday. So I'm going to enjoy it while I can these last 27 games.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My dog is just acting up over here with my uncle. But no, it's a long off season for hockey, right? Like I hate how long we have to wait for. I know you have the World Championships and you have the draft to look forward to, I guess, but it's not like the NFL season where there's always something to talk about. When it comes to the NFL, the Sabres offseason just seems to be so much longer and dragged out. I don't know if it is or it isn't, but it feels like it. especially when the offseason normally begins before the playoffs start.
Yeah.
But I agree with you there. Give me some winning hockey here, a winning record from here to the end of the season. We'll see where things shake out. And again, I can't imagine we're buyers the deadline. I mean, if you are, I don't know, unless you're converting, you're making a run at a guy on either heading into his RFA year or just doesn't happen to have a no movement clause. I don't know how you're nothing but a seller at the deadline. So but we'll see. I hope we can have you on for our trade deadline show coming up here. When is the deadline again? It's coming up in like 3 weeks, isn't it?
I think 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's coming up. It's coming right around the corner.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be live for most of that day as I'm currently on the hem right now, whatever the word is. As I told you before, and I told you guys before, I'm currently got a titanium rod in my leg with 5 screws after I broke both my fibula and my tibia this past weekend. Slipping on ice, people. Be careful. But that's all I got. Walt, as always, thanks for hopping on with us. You're a beaut as always, and it's always good to get you on. If you guys want to follow him and all his content, you can find him right there at Sabermetrics. He works with the Charging Buffalo. You can find me right there at Duane S39. You can find the podcast at 2 Goalies 1 Mike. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoy coming on this show, us pulling up your comments, interacting with you, again, we appreciate this community we've built with this show over the past, 4+ years. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button. I can't express it enough. It helps us so much with that algorithm. If you're not subscribed already, please hit subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so you know when we go live. I appreciate it all nonetheless. We will talk to you later. And as always, go Sabres.